Welcome back, family. I got something special. As I told you, we are staying on this train regarding Scrum. So I have part one of Scrum terminology. The whole purpose here, family, is we're going to go and touch on Scrum from a more of a beginner's level. I'm going to go through a couple items around artifacts, events, and some just basic definitions. I hope this is really going to help those that are going after your CSM, Certified Scrum Master, for those that are taking CAPM, PMP. All of this information is relevant. This is why I'm going to do more Scrum type, I should say, Agile mindset type of work. So on this one, we're going to do Scrum. With no further ado, let's just jump into the content and get to work. All right, Scrum. What is the definition of Scrum? Scrum is a defined lightweight framework that is designed to help people, teams, and organizations generate value through adaptive solutions for complex problems. A good thing here, family, is what I want you to understand. Scrum is not a mindset. Scrum is not a methodology. It is a framework. A lot of times what'll happen is people will get confused, and I'm thankful for great mentors like Phil and Roy that really poured into me to help me understand Scrum a little bit better, Agile 100% better. But the whole point here, family, is just really understanding that Scrum is a framework. It's a lightweight framework for people, teams, and most definitely to handle complex problems. Empiricism, what is that? It's a philosophy that's central to Scrum. It emphasizes on decision based on evidence, frequent inspections, and continuous adaptation to changing conditions. All right, let's move into our next one here. Scrum theory. Now we're going to touch more on the Scrum theory aspect of things. But right now, what you need to understand about Scrum theory is based on the empirical process control, which relies on three pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. These pillars help teams work effectively in complex and unpredictable environments. All right, let's move on to the three pillars. So I gave you what they were: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. But what do they mean? Well, transparency means all aspects of the process must be visible to those responsible for the outcome. This includes artifacts like the product backlog and the increment. Inspection. Scrum teams must frequently inspect progress toward the sprint goal to detect from current or correct deviations. Let's see what else we got here. Adaptation. This is one of my favorites. Well, transparency is really huge because in project management, what tends to happen is we do our best to be very transparent, but with a Scrum framework, our goal is to maintain and sustain that transparency. We're not hiding that, oh, well, we're not doing well here. We're very transparent. We're not doing well. We need help. And this is what I love about this particular framework. So adaptation based on inspection, adjustments, and are made to minimize deviations and achieve these desired goal. Now, Scrum has 5 core values. I said it with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 core values. Core values are commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage. Commitment is just saying the team is committed to their goals and supporting each other. Focus translates into every focus of the work on the sprint and the goals of the Scrum team. Openness, the team members are open about the challenges as well as progress. And then respect. I feel like Aretha right now. R-E-S-A-P. Okay, I'm sorry. Team members respect each other as capable and independent individuals. And then courage. I believe courage, in my opinion, I didn't get paid to say this, or this is the truth of how I feel. I really believe courage is really the foundation, because a lot of times when you're leading projects from a project, if I'm leveraging a predictive type of methodology, courage is something you have to continue to pull out your team. Here, Scrum is saying, no, we need We need a team that has the courage to take on difficult challenges and do the right thing. It's all about doing the right thing. All right, let's get into the artifacts. Matter of fact, what is a Scrum artifact? Well, Scrum artifacts are essential items in the Scrum that provides transparency, focus, and alignment for the Scrum team and stakeholders. They represent work or value being delivered and serve as tools for inspection, adaptation, and the Scrum framework. Remember, inspection, adaptation, and transparency are our three pillars in Scrum. Now let's unpack some of these artifacts. So we have three artifacts here: product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment. What is a product backlog? A product backlog is an order list of everything that needs to improve the product, providing transparency into what the team will work on. A sprint backlog is the set of the product backlog items selected for the sprint, plus then the plan for delivering them. Increment is the sum of all completed work at the end of sprint, representing progress toward the product goal. Now, I put something down here a little bit extra. One of the things that you have to understand, the product backlog has a product goal. The sprint backlog has a sprint goal, and the increment represents what we call definition of done. And again, remember, this is part one. We are going to go deeper, but I just want to get a feel to see what you guys are thinking about what we're talking about here. So this is just, as they say, the appetizer. Scrum events. So what are Scrum events? They're also known as some ceremonies. They're structured meetings in Scrum that provide regular opportunities for Scrum teams to inspect and adapt their work and processes and ensuring transparency and alignment. There's that word again, transparency. All right, let's unpack these events. So the first event is a sprint. What is a sprint? The sprint is the container for all Scrum events, a fixed time period during which is a usable and valuable increment that is created. Now, the purpose of this is to deliver a potential shippable increment of work that aligns with the sprint goal. Now, I want you to see this piece right here, family. Potential shippable. Even though it can be shipped, that doesn't mean that we have to ship it. Does that make sense? So a lot of times we can get it confused that once this increment is ready to go, I've heard confusion out there to say, oh, well, then it's shippable. Well, yeah, it is shippable, but that doesn't mean we have to ship it just yet. Now, this is a time box event, and I'm going to talk about what does time box mean. But time box for a normal sprint is, the industry standard is 1 to 4 weeks, okay? Sprint planning. Sprint planning is a meeting to define the sprint goal, because remember, I shared that with you earlier of talking about how do we get let's go back and look at that real quick. So the sprint backlog the sprint goal comes from the sprint backlog. Let's move forward. Now, sprint planning. A meeting to define the sprint goal, select product backlog items for the sprint, and create a plan to achieve the goal. Now, the purpose. This aligns the team on what will be delivered and how. Participants. Now, you remember when we, from a previous, if you don't, I'll give you the high level. There are 3 roles in the Scrum framework: the product owner, Scrum Master, and development team. Again, product owner, Scrum Master, and development team. Those are the participants that will participate in the sprint planning. This is a time boxed event. There's that word again, time box. Up to 8 hours, and this is based off a 4-week sprint. Daily Scrum or daily stand-up. There's so many different names out there that I keep hearing more and more. So basically, this is a short meeting for the development team to synchronize, expect progress, and plan the next 24 hours. Purpose: to foster transparency and ensure alignment towards sprint goal. This is a shout out to my mentor, Phil, of saying, special note, this is something I had to learn as well, family. We have to understand these daily stand-ups or the daily Scrum, these time box 15 minutes per day items are meant not to be a status meeting compared to what you would have normally in a predictive or basically a waterfall type project where you go into a meeting, most of the time it's a status meeting. This is not that one of those type of things. This is just to ask those questions, what we'll mirror down in a minute. But again, not a status meeting. I want you to understand that, because again, that's miscommunication out out there in the world. I've seen that. I've been victim of it because I thought, yeah, it is a status meeting, but it is not really a status meeting. So participants, a development team facilitated by the Scrum Master if it's needed. You don't see the product owner in there. You don't see the stakeholders in there. This is for the development team. And this is time box. Again, 15 minutes per day. Now, the key focus areas is, hey, what did you do yesterday that helped the team to meet the sprint goal? What this does is provides visibility into the progress. Second one, so you don't have to worry about somebody saying, yeah, I'm about 50% done. You like, oh, okay. Because most of the time in predictive approach, we use percentage. We'll say, oh, we're about 50% there, or we're about 30% there. Here, this is more of, hey, did you do it or did you not? Where are we at in this? What will I do today to help the team meet the sprint goal? That aligns efforts and priorities. So there's no confusion of, hey, should I be working on that or should I not? And then the last and final one, are there any impediments blocking my progress? Now, I want to park here parenthetically, family, and help you understand something here. This is going to be so important for you, especially if you go after and get your CSM, Certified Scrum Master. One of the things you have to understand is this: as a Scrum Master, you do not solve the impediments that come up during the daily stand-ups. I will repeat in totals, as they would say. You do not solve the impediments that come up in your daily stand-up, because keep in mind, this meeting is time boxed for 15 minutes per day. So we want to set up a separate meeting or meet afterwards to actually resolve and solve that particular impediment. All right, let's move on to the next part of the Scrum events, because again, there's a total of 5. And you say, well, if 5, why you got 6 on here? There was 3 here, and then there's 3 here. Good question. See, this is why I like talking to you, family. So sprint review is also known as a demo, a meeting to inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog based on feedback from stakeholders. What's the purpose? The purpose is to demonstrate the completed work and collect feedback from the stakeholders and align on the next step. Who's the participants? Normally, you will have your Scrum team. So a Scrum team consists of the 3 roles that I discussed. What were those 3 roles? Product owner, Scrum Master, and development team. So it'll be your Scrum team as well as with the stakeholders. This is also a time boxed event, up to 4 hours for a week. Sprint retrospective. Retrospective, a meeting to reflect on the past sprint and identify actionable improvements for the next sprint. Let me park here as well. So one thing I love about a sprint retrospective compared to a lessons learned, there's 2 reasons. First reason is with a retrospective, when we identify it, we fix it right away. With a retrospective, one of the great things is when you really get a team that really empowers, oh, okay, you don't like that, that embraces the 3 pillars, which is transparency, adaptation, and inspection. The transparency of me being able to be transparent with you and say, hey, listen, you said you were going to do this, and I've been watching. We keep missing the sprint because you're not showing up. I'm not attacking you, but I'm giving you consulting. I'm consulting with you to let you know you're impacting the team. We're in this together. How can we help? So it's really about improvements, and then not just talking about the improvement. Let's document the improvement and put action on it. Put people assigned to those to improving those items that we identify that needs improvement, and take actionable. And take action and execute. So again, the purpose to improve process, collaboration, and productivity. Participants, again, the Scrum team. I love what Roy said, call it, what do you say? Ala Vegas or something. I can't remember now. But point of is, the whole cliche, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So it's one of those things where you want your sprint retrospective to really be a safe place. This is a place that you and I, or I should say the team, should be able to be very candid, to be very straightforward, no fluff, no political responses. We're being very honest because we are trying to protect the team. And this is also a time box, 3 hours for over 4 weeks. Now, product backlog refinement. Technically, this is not part of the Scrum event. It's just a recommended practice. So normally for your Scrum events, you only have 5 instead of 6. But I put this on here because I thought it was important, because it's an ongoing activity to refine and prioritize the product backlog, ensuring items are ready for the next sprint. What's the purpose? Clarity. So we're clarifying requirements, estimating work, and prioritizing the backlog items. Who participates in this? Normally it's your product owner, Scrum Master, if needed, and development team. Now this is, I went back and forth with this about it is a time box event, up to 4 hours spread across, a spread over a 2-week spread. But there's also, you could also look at it 5 to 10% of the team's total sprint time. Now, I know that's not doable. You need more time than 5 to 10% of the total sprint time. So again, just looking at 4 hours. Time boxing. What is time boxing? We've been talking about it. I've been saying the daily scrum is 15 minutes as a time box. I've talked about, let's go back and look at some of those. Talked about the sprint review, what is also known as a demo, is 4 hours. Time boxing. So time boxing is an allocated fixed maximum duration for scrum events, normally sprint, daily scrum, to ensure focus, efficiency, as well as constant, or I should say consistent, progress. Summary of a 2-week sprint. So what I did, family, is we went through some of these events and or whatnot. I want to basically unpack it here for you really, again, from a very high level. Sprint planning, up to 4 hours. Daily scrum, 15 minutes. Daily sprint reviews, up to 2 hours. Sprint retrospective, I said 1.5, but it could vary. And then product backlog refinement, like we said, 4 hours or 5 to 10%. Scrum metrics. Now, what does that mean? That basically means that allocated, well, I'm giving you what we just talked about, but Scrum matrix is basically us having different matrix to see how we're performing. So let's look at sprint burn-up chart. So what is a burn-up chart? It is a visual representation of the amount of work completed over time compared to the total work required. It shows progress and scope change in a single view. So as you can see here, to my right, it may be your left or your right, I'm not sure. But as you can see over here, I have the sprint burn-up chart. And this is just an example of a sprint burn-up chart. You can look at it. So normally how this works, the purpose is to display the total work and then what has been accomplished. And it also provides a clear view of scope change. It just makes it easier to see how additional work affects progress, and then it highlights whether the team is trending toward achieving the goal or not. Sprint burn down chart. So that was a burn up. Now we got the burn down. Now if you can see the difference, the burn down chart is what it's saying. It's going down. Burn up is going up. Now, the burn down chart is a visual representation of the amount of work remaining in the sprint or project over time. It does show how much work has been completed and how much is left to meet the goal. Now, personally, I like both charts, but if we're being reasonable, burn down chart is one of those, at least I know, okay, hey, I only got this much work left to actually complete. What's the purpose? The purpose is to track progress towards completing the sprint goal or overall project, identifies the team is on track to deliver within the planned time. And then the last and final one, highlight potential delays or impediments early. What is CFD? A cumulative flow diagram. So this is basically a combination of the burn up and burn down chart. And this is a visual tool as well, combining the elements of both burn up and burn down charts to show progress of work completed, work in progress, and work remaining. Now let's look at the purpose. It provides a holistic view of the project flow and progress. It also makes scope changes, bottlenecks, and trends easier to actually identify. It helps teams adjust their pace or scope to meet the deadline. Again, CFD, or cumulative flow diagram. What is velocity? People be like, well, what's your velocity? Velocity is a Scrum metric that really measures the amount of work a Scrum team completes during a single sprint. It typically is expressed in terms of story points, hours completed, or completed product backlog item. It just represents a team capacity to deliver and is based on historical data from previous sprint. So I'm not going to dig through all of this. I'm going to give you very high level. So there's 4 pieces here that I have. So forecasting future work, it just really helps you understand the work that the team can complete in upcoming sprints, aiding in the long-term planning. Then you have measuring team capacity. That's just basically providing insight into team's productivity and capacity for future sprints. We also have supporting sprint planning. This just guides the team in selecting the right amount of product backlog items during sprint planning to ensure a realistic workload. And then the last and final one is identifying trends. So by tracking velocity over time, teams can identify trends, whether increasing efficiency or reoccurring impediments. And then also I'll add on to that consistent velocity suggests a stable team, while frequent variations may indicate process issues. I have three important notes that I want to get clear on this. And again, I've learned a lot of this from Roy and Phil. And what I've learned is that this is not supposed to be a performance matrix. Velocity should never be used to compare teams or judge individual performance, as it depends on team-specific factors like skill sets and complexity of work. Team-specific velocity is unique to each Scrum team and is not transferable across teams. I will repeat that. Why am I repeating this? Because I've noticed that what could end up happening is that a team could, let's say I'm over a team, not as a Scrum Master, but I'm responsible for this. And I could look at a team's velocity and say, well, they were able to get this type of velocity. Why can't you? And it's like, well, there's so many different variables, just like I talked about. There may be a variable of skill set. There may be a variable of the complexity of the actual work. So velocity is unique to each Scrum team. It's not a transferable across teams. And then it requires consistency. Accurate velocity measurements depend on consistent sizing of backlog items and adherence to definition of done, or DOD. Cycle time. Cycle time measures the amount of time it takes for a task to move through the workflow from the moment work on the task begins to when it's actually completed. So the purpose of I meant cycle time, not velocity. It helps assess the team's efficiency and identify bottlenecks in the workflow. It's used to measure the speed of delivery and optimize process. I want to give you an example. So if a team starts working on a task, let's say November 1st, and completes it on November 4th, the cycle time is 3 days. So by analyzing cycle times for multiple tasks, the team can identify patterns such as consistently slower progress on tasks requiring testing. Lead time. What is lead time? Lead time measures the total time from when a task is added to the backlog until it's completed, including time spent waiting before the task started. Again, excuse the purpose of velocity, we're talking about lead time. It provides insight into the overall response of the team, includes both cycle time and wait time for both of the work to start. So let's look at what an example of lead time. So a feature request was added to the backlog October 15. Work begins on the 1st and it's going to be completed on the 4th. So the lead time is 20 days. The cycle time of that subset is 3 days. And a special note, by comparing lead time and cycle time, the team can identify delays that occurred before work actual started. Sprint goal success rate. I love this one. Sprint goal success rate measures how often a team successfully achieves the goals set for a sprint, expressed in percentages. It tracks the team focus and ability to deliver on commitment. It helps identify trends in goal achievement and areas for improvement. Of course, I got to give you an example. So over the last 10 sprints, the team achieved a sprint goal of 8 times. So the math equation for the sprint goal success rate, you take 8 divided by 10 times 100 gives you 80. And then you do the math again, 8 divided by 10 times 100 gives me my 80%. If the rate consistently is below expectation, the team can investigate contributing factors such as unrealistic goals or inefficient planning. I put up the Agile Manifesto because this is something, even though we're talking about Scrum, I believe we should get this to memory. I'm actually working on studying this, committing it to memory. I think this is going to be one of what I call my 1,000 shots. So when I play basketball every day, I would try to pull up 1,000 shots a day. So this is my 1,000 shots a day with you guys. So I want to share that with you holistically. Well, family, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I go by the name of ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, that simply means Ed. Well, let me see who we got here. Roger Robinson, I like what you're doing. Thanks for helping us in the workforce. I'd definitely be saving this to check this out. Roger, I appreciate you. Yeah, we're bringing more. We're just going to keep, I want to make sure you guys are tooled up, skilled up. So when you go into these interviews and have these conversations, you should be literally ready to go. And I'm hoping if there's anything that I can do, I'm also going to leave a link. So if there's any conversations or questions that you guys have, I want to make sure that I can serve you in that matter. So I'll put a link. If you got any questions, ask, or if there's any episodes that you want to see filmed, like you have questions on, like, what is these 3 pillars? Like, what is transparency versus adaptation versus however I can serve? I'm here to serve, family. And if you haven't, go pick up the book, The Magnetic Project Manager. I would appreciate it for that. I go by the name of ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, that just simply means it. Until next time.